We're going to take a look at a traditional reverse crunch. And we're not going to use any resistance from the machine on this, but there is a little thing we'll talk about that you can do to make it harder or easier based upon the direction you lie on this bench. But take a look. The first thing is Josh is going to grab up behind his head to help stabilize this, because sometimes the legs are pretty heavy and they could be hard to bring them up if this part wants to move also. So to grab it by the head. Go ahead to start out with the easiest version is collapse your legs as much as possible. So your calves are right against your hamstrings, your legs are in tight, and we're not going to move, straighten the knees, bend the knees, we're not going to bend the hips at all. This whole thing is about moving the pelvis. So watch what he does in his head. He's going to go slow, you're going to see it happen. He's going to tighten his abs, and just like little ropes attached to his pelvis, he's going to try to curl his pelvis towards his ribs. So he's not even thinking so much about up, although there will be some up to it. He's thinking about curling inward. There you go. Not necessarily a huge motion, but do it all with the abs, and you will really, really feel it. Now, this is not spot reducing. This is muscle building stuff. There's no such thing as spot reduction. You've got to eat right and all that stuff for that. But the tightening and the crunching, now, if that's getting easy, what he could do is just move these out a little bit, and it won't take much, and then if he can maintain that new position, that, in essence, put the weight further away, which makes it a little heavier. See, feel that, Josh? So that makes it a little bit harder, so you can progress up that way. Now, the other thing you could do, notice that to this whole bench, there's a little bit of an angle. And when the part you're lifting and lowering is on the low side of the angle, that makes it a little harder. So if you really had trouble with this in the beginning, and this is a tough crunch, you could not only keep the legs in tight, but you could also lay the other way on the bench, and it might feel a little easier, where your hips would be on the high end of the bench and your head would be down here. That might be the way to start. Another thing to note, this is not just lower abs versus abdominal abs. You can see his upper abdominals, the upper rectus abdominis, working just as hard as the lower. So you cannot separate those two things in terms of the forces that you put between the muscles. For the traditional abdominal crunch, you'll need to decide which way to lie on the bench, either with your head and shoulders up near the leg extension, or the way we've got Josh here, where they're down near the adjustable arms. The difference is that when we're downhill like this, with a moving portion, which is your upper body, it's going to be a little tiny bit tougher. Now, there's not much angle to the bench, so you may not notice that too much, but that is a reality. Now, here's the next thing. I would suggest trying this at least with your arms just crossed here at your chest first. All right? Some people like to immediately put them behind their head because they think their neck and head's going to get their neck's going to get tired due to the weight of their head. But if you have to do that, I would suggest you wait until it actually gets tired, so that maybe it could get a little stronger in the process instead of starting that way from repetition number 1. So here's the goal. Josh is not going to throw his head and neck into it. This is not about lifting the head. The head and neck go along for the ride. It's about moving from here to here. So watch him tighten first and use that tension to create the motion of ribs towards pelvis. If you don't feel the contraction, if you don't feel the muscle pulling you up, don't move. There's no benefit to just moving without using the things you want to use. So take your time, and as you crunch, go slow and see how far you can go. Not by how far you can throw it up there, but by how far you can crunch it up there. Feel everything from your pelvis to your ribs working, and then use all that on the way back down. Tons of control. Don't just flop down there, but work every inch on the way back down. Now, if you do that, and you do it right, chances are, even if you were doing 50 crunches some sloppy way, you'll probably be down to 10 or 12 the hard way. So take the time to get everything out of them you need. This is not a spot reducing exercise, this is a strengthening exercise, and you probably won't need much extra resistance if you're doing it correctly.